How many of you still remember your first computer? Maybe it was a machine for the whole family, or perhaps you were lucky enough to have a computer of your very own. In any case, I'm picking that many of you had to wave your first PC goodbye long ago. I'm lucky, I didn't have to. This is the Farmer's Discovery 5501 PC, manufactured by the PC Company on December 18th, 2000. It sports a 667MHz Intel Celeron CPU, 192MB of PC133 RAM, a 9.4GB hard drive, an 8MB ATI Expert 98 AGP video card, onboard audio, and Windows Me. This PC is the epitome of the bog basic beige box of the late 90s and early 2000s. From its bland exterior to its modest components, there is nothing special about this PC. And that's exactly why it's special, at least to me. You see, this was my first computer, and even though I only used it for 6 months or so before upgrading to a new Vista machine in 2007, it was still pretty important to me. This machine was sold exclusively in farmers' department stores for 2,500 New Zealand dollars, or 2,400 with Voyager Internet bundled in, the former being more than $3,000 today. The generically named PC Company began life in New Zealand in 1982 as Pegasus Electronics, became the PC Company in 1997, and were a fairly prominent OEM right through to their demise in September 2003. As an interesting historical side note, they shipped the world's first PC loaded with Windows XP. My family's first computer came from the same company, coincidentally in the same year they collapsed. From memory, it was nothing more than a cheap piece of shit. It broke down, several parts had to be replaced, and it only lasted 2 years before completely giving out altogether. It's fair to say that I don't have the fondest memories of computers bearing this name. But let's not saddle this machine with that machine's failures. Let's have a look at what we're working with. On the front, we have the standard offering of a CD drive, 3.5-inch floppy drive, and buttons for sleep, reset, and power. Average stuff. Opening the front panel door gives us another two 5.25-inch drive bays to play with. Around the back, we have helpfully labelled PS2 ports, 2 USBs, which I would assume are 1.1, 2 serial ports, a printer port, joystick, and ports for speakers, line-in, and mic. Below that, there's VGA, a 56K modem, and that's it. I told you it was basic. To get inside, you must first gently remove the front fascia. This is just cheap brittle plastic after all, so an element of care is needed. And there's the machine's birth certificate, December 18th, 2000. The two panels on either side of the chassis are both held in with 2 Phillips head screws. Be sure not to drop them. Inside, you can see that there's not much to see. This really is bare bones. This motherboard has 1 AGP graphics slot, 3 PCI slots, and 1 for ISA, so legacy support is possible. A closer look at the video card shows it has an ATI Rage Mobility P chip, a laptop chip launched in February 1999. A gaming powerhouse? This ain't. There really isn't much to show here, so let's get this booted up. First, we'll need a monitor, keyboard, mouse, and some neighbour haters. Now. And after about 70 seconds, Windows Me is fully loaded and ready to go. So, what's there to do with a basic Beige machine like this? This computer in particular was intended for light tasks, like word processing. Paint. Productivity. DOS work. Listening to MIDI files that sound just a little off. And education.
Hello, my name is Charles.
Hello, my name is Paul.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Bonjour. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
But let's be honest, all we ever want to do with one of these things is get some gaming done. So here's a turn of the century selection that you might have had in your library around this time. Microsoft Train Simulator runs technically. Even if I dial the settings right down, the game chugs harder than the Flying Scotsman. I experimented with different settings and combinations, but it just didn't really make much difference. And then this happened. Okay, well, better luck with The Sims at least. I played this game on this machine back in the day, and while I thought the performance then was pretty good, it's obvious now that it's only passable. I wouldn't recommend venturing out into the busy streets of the old town without swapping the video card, and perhaps the processor as well, out for something with a bit more heft. But hey, on the other hand, Lego Island runs flawlessly. This game is pretty notorious for running at hyperspeed on fast machines, so I'm quite happy with its performance here. Yeah, it's not quite 60 frames per second, but I'll give it full marks all the same. Monster Truck Madness? Well, this was a mixed bag, really. While I was able to eventually get the game running more or less decently, albeit at low to mid settings, it did glitch out quite a few times and forget that there was even a race being held at all. I thought this computer would make short work of this game, but it really took a while to get there. Even a game from '96 is just a bit too much for that old mobility chip. Tropico is an old favourite of mine. If you're willing to sacrifice a high resolution and a little bit of the graphical fruit salad, it'll run quite happily on here. There's a little bit of hitching here and there, but it's not enough to be much of a frustration. Life runs a little bit slower in the Caribbean, I suppose.
Sunny California weather today as we prepare for a very exciting race.
For racing, there's little reason to look past Midtown Madness 2. This was one of my staples as a kid, and it's a game I use as a benchmark for computers of this vintage. Unfortunately, this computer really isn't built for flooring it through San Francisco, at least not on the bare minimum of 8 megs of video memory, even with the graphics cut right back. The family computer, which had beefier muscles and a hairier chest, was definitely my racing machine of choice. But SimCity 2000, now there's a game. Nearly every computer I own runs it like a dream, and this machine is no exception. That's hardly surprising given how old the game is, but look, a computer review without SimCity 2000 is just woefully incomplete. The same can be said of SimCity 3000 as well. I logged countless hours of city building on this computer, and performance has never been an issue. This machine will quite happily build Melbourne in an afternoon, but Rome might take a little bit longer on this old Celeron. On the DOS side of things, Microsoft Flight Simulator 5.1 is smooth and straightforward. even if my flying isn't. Commander Keen? That's fine. Jill of the Jungle? That's fine too. Doom? That's fine as well, so long as you like playing in total silence. Unfortunately, DOS sound support on this computer leaves a lot to be desired, so your best bet is to stick to Windows if you'd like your computer to do more than just beep at you. So all in all, what did you get for your dollars if you walked into a farmer's store in 2000 and bought one of these off the shelf? Well, if all you needed was a simple machine to do simple work, then it's got you covered. It'll handle your everyday tasks with some light entertainment thrown in, but don't expect this to be a retro gaming rig unless you want to put the necessary upgrades into it first. This is a cheap PC, and it uses cheap basic parts, and it serves its purpose well. I'll put it to you like this though, it'd make for a good upgrade project in the right hands. And that is the Farmer's Discovery 5501, a textbook definition of your ordinary turn-of-the-millennium beige PC. It's unremarkable in every way, and I suppose to me at least, that's part of its charm. This computer represents a period in my life when I was beginning to leave my childhood behind, and at the time, it represented an early marker of growing independence. It also came into my life at a time when I was starting to appreciate late 90s era computers more, and I suppose this was a way of experiencing an era that had already come and gone. Beige might be boring to most folks, but to me, it'll always stay cool. So, thanks for watching this boring review of a boring computer. I'll be back soon with more old computer stuff, so keep your disk drives tuned to this frequency.